Hello and welcome to Lovecraft in the Bath with me, VEELA. This is the time where I get to do one of my favorite things and share the joy and glory that is the stories of H.P. Lovecraft. These are one of my favorite things. I love reading these stories and they've completely changed my view on how I write things, and I think that you guys should know of him too, especially if you like my music. The story that I'm going to be talking about today is none other than the first story in this Little Penguin Classics compilation by S.T. Joshi. It's called Dagon. It's a very famous story. It really envelops that sense of cosmic horror that Lovecraft is so well known for. This video contains tons of spoilers. I'm going to go through the entire story, so if you have not read it, please go to one of the links of a free text version online of it, or to an audiobook where you can listen to the story in like 10 minutes. So the story in a nutshell is that it begins with this narrative where there's a man explaining that he's going to kill himself, he's had enough, and this was his final kind of testament to what had happened to him to get him to that point. And he talks about how, oh, the morphine's not enough, but don't think I'm a weakling for taking morphine. I need it just to deal with my memories. So we're like, okay, tell us why. So then he goes on and it's his little explanation of what had happened. This man was a prisoner, a war prisoner, a naval prisoner on a boat. And basically he escapes and starts rowing out into the sea frantically because he doesn't want to get caught. He goes out to sea, he stays there for days, he can't find land. And then one day he falls asleep and has horrible nightmares, and then wakes up when he sees this expanse of land that he should be very excited about, but is not, because it's giving him a really bad feeling. I love this sentence. When at last I awaked, it was to discover myself half sucked in to a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see, and in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Hellish black mire? Who thinks of this stuff? Then he goes on to describe how the whole landscape is just strange and he can't quite put his finger on it, but it's just not making sense. He says the geometry of it was really strange. I mean, what does that mean? Everything is black, tar-like, and dead and decaying. There's no birds, which is a common theme in Lovecraft. When he wants to explain that something is like really scary or a place is really scary, he says there's no birds there. I understand. I would also be afraid if there were no birds where I was going. So he doesn't know what to do, and he stays in his boat and just waits there and thinks that maybe if he stays, the ground will be a little bit less sticky so that he could walk around and explore. He does this for a few days, and then he says, on the third morning I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal. So then he starts figuring out where he's gonna go. He walks around a little bit, he gets to this like mound, which he realizes is too high to climb, and he doesn't do it. He falls asleep and wakes up in the middle of the night because of horrible dreams, and realizes that it's stupid to travel in the daytime. He wants to travel in the night because the sun is too hot. Then he finally is able to get the courage and the strength to climb up to the top of this mound. It's kind of like a hill, and he is horrified to find that above the hill is a huge chasm, like a chasm of death is right in front of him. He doesn't know what to do about it. There's a great line in here that says, I gained the summit of the mount and looked down to the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. Beautiful, it's poetry. As the moon goes up and he can start seeing the mountain and how it goes down, he starts climbing down and his eye catches this thing in the middle of the pit, and it's like this big white monolith. He thinks it's natural at first, but then he can't bear to leave it alone. So he goes and sees, and sure enough, it's this big, huge, white monolith that has hieroglyphics and pictures of things that he would never imagine. He goes on to describe everything that's at the bottom of this chasm, and there's like a body of water on one side, there's like dead things all over the place, like fish and stuff that the birds aren't eating, because guess what, we know this is a scary place because there are no birds. On this monolith were hieroglyphics, pictures of fish, pictures of octopus, things like that. And then he sees other carvings that are starting to depict things that look like they're supposed to be men, but they're more in the shape of fish. Lovecraft had a thing about fish people. He looks at these a little bit more. He goes, oh my god, what the heck, the fish people seem so big, because in one of the pictures the fish people are killing like a whale and the whale is the same size as them. It doesn't make any sense. The things have webbed hands and feet. It's just a mess. He figures, okay, it must just be like an ancient fishing town who drew these horrible paintings. They were really distorted in the head. I don't know, maybe, whatever. But he tried to just be like, okay, this is really cool. I'm an explorer now, whatever. Then suddenly, he sees this monster that is scaly. There isn't very much description, but clearly it's terrifying, it's big, it's black, and it goes and it slinks towards the monolith and it holds it. Then in the story, he says, I think I went mad then. Then it describes this mad, panicked, frantic escape of this island or land or whatever the heck it was, and he goes back to his boat. He's like singing, he's laughing, he doesn't know what to do, and then he passes out. Then he wakes up in the hospital. Apparently an American boat had found him in his little rowboat and he was in complete delirium. He tries to tell them and explain about everything, but they don't listen. So they just, discharge him, whatever. But he has nightmares and he can't get rid of them. And in the end, he just says, you know what? I'm done. I tried morphine, I'm trying to forget, whatever, and he decides that he's going to kill himself, and that's what happens. He goes mad at the end, he's yelling, it's very Lovecraft, it's amazing. And near the end of the story, it says that, oh, I can see it now, the hand is at the door, and oh my goodness, and he starts screaming, and it's great. This is the first story in a compilation, and this book also has Cthulhu in it, which is kind of the most famous Lovecraft story. Dagon is a really good place to start because it's so short. You're kind of left there after reading it and you're like, holy shit, what did I read? What's so great about Lovecraft is that he addresses these deep carnal fears that we have about being the smallest, tiniest thing in the universe and it being controlled by things that we can't even imagine. And that's what I love so much about it, is because a lot of the times, although sometimes it's predictable because people copy his stories so much, there's still little things that you're like, how in the world did you think about that, you crazy motherfucker? So that's Dagon. I strongly recommend you go read it, and please tell me what you thought, because I find that there aren't that many people who want to discuss these things, and I love it. It's a huge influence in what I do. Thank you for joining me. Stay out of trouble. He wakes up in the hospital and they